All right, today we're going to talk to you about Johnson's plan. Last time we talked about the 10% plan, Lincoln's 10% plan, and today we're going to talk to you about Johnson's plan in the wake of Lincoln's assassination. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, Johnson is an interesting choice for president. He's on the ticket in 1864 to be Lincoln's border state running mate, so that he can try to garner some of those votes. He is the only senator from a seceded state who didn't secede with that state. But he's also, interestingly enough, a terrible choice to be vice president, let alone be president. In a couple of things. He was a drunkard, and there's multiple things of that. He was a racist, and he had a hatred of the Southern planter class. He was drunk at his own inauguration for vice president. His explanation was that he had a terrible tooth infection, which he had been treating with whiskey. And so that was supposed to be the thing that kind of dismissed all the, oh, it's okay, it's no big deal. There are things called dentists. You could have gone to a dentist. They could have dealt with that problem instead of you drinking yourself blind, drunk, and then showing up to your own inauguration drunk. That's, issues. He was a virulent white supremacist. He's an ardent states' rights man. He believed fervently that white supremacy was the way of things. It's a white man. To him, it was a white man's world. And then, of course, he nurtured a hatred of the Southern planter class, and he was never really anti-slavery. He was never really not racist. He was openly racist to everybody that he could talk to about it. Of course, he never made those types of comments publicly, but privately he had a lot of those types of comments. And he's once quoted as saying, of course, obviously, that it should remain a white man's country forever. But in terms of the Southern planter class, he disliked them, even though he had once owned slaves. He let them go. But he disliked the Southern planter class because they represented to him something that he really couldn't have. He could never reach that pinnacle of owning $20,000 of property or more. And so there's that. Now, Johnson too harbors a little bit of hatred because of the way he was brought up. He's born into a not very well-to-do family. He's a person who, when he actually does come of age, he doesn't really receive very much education. He actually is illiterate for a great long period of time. His wife Polly will teach him how to read. He grows up a Jacksonian Democrat, and he finds himself aligned more with the South than, of course, with Lincoln. But ultimately, it's that early time in his youth where he's really struggling that he starts to breed this hatred for the Southern planter class, and of course that carries him all the way through to his presidency, of course. Now, his plan, interestingly enough, he has a plan. His plan is fairly different from Lincoln's, although if you had asked him, he would probably tell you, yeah, we're going to do exactly what Lincoln does. He had a real bad habit of telling people what they wanted to hear, or of agreeing with them when they said something that demanded some either an agreement or a disagreement. He would just agree with them. So when Congress asks him, when he takes over as president, hey, are you planning on continuing with Lincoln's 10% plan? He says, of course, yes, this is exactly what we're going to do. And that could have been further from the truth. His plan was quite a bit different than Lincoln's. His plan was to accept the 13th Amendment because, as he believed, and many people in the United States believed, that had been the verdict on the war. And so, the 13th Amendment was what the war had been fought for. So, of course, we're going to hold on to that. But he never really accepted the 14th or 15th Amendment, and oftentimes found himself working hard to fight against their passage and to defeat them whenever possible. He does, though, urge the states to ratify the 13th. Instead of saying, though, that he wanted 10% of the voting population of the Confederate States to take loyalty oaths, form their own governments, and then be readmitted to the Union, he changed that percentage from 10% to that percent who are loyal, or that portion who are loyal, which is a hard thing to quantify, because if I have a room full of 10 people and 2 of them go along with what I say and say, yeah, I agree with that, and the other 8 don't, then I could say, well, that portion that are loyal said they were okay with it, and so we're going to go ahead and let these states in, and that's kind of what he does. He doesn't really have a percentage. He doesn't have a number in mind at all. He's that portion that are loyal. Under Lincoln's plan, people with a rank of lieutenant and below in the Confederate Army were going to receive pardons. And he'll keep that up, but he puts a little addendum in there and says, hey, also, I will not pardon any Southerner who owns $20,000 or more worth of property. Now, that's literally the Southern planter class. That's a direct shot at the Southern planter class, and is born out of his hatred of them. And the other thing that his plan does is that the application for pardon had to be personal. It had to be made to him specifically. He was going to make the South grovel for it. Now, what I don't think he realized was that the South are good at paperwork, especially Southern women are good at paperwork. Southern women and those seeking pardon arrived in Washington with their paperwork filled out, much to his chagrin, and they formed lines around the White House waiting to see the president. Remember, during this time, there's no fences around the White House, so they're all the way down Pennsylvania Avenue, wrapped around. They're ready to see the president. By May of 1866, he has personally signed 7,000 such pardons. And of course, he was able to get away with doing that because the Congress is not in session in the summer of 1865. So he's got a whole slew of time to get these blanket pardons through. And as a result, some bad things are going to happen. Now that those blanket pardons have been issued, now that these southern states are starting to come back online, Johnson helped to set up whites-only governments in all states that had met the basic criteria for readmission under his plan. And they rapidly began in the summer and fall of 1865 to pass what became known as the Black Codes. And with no Congress to stop them at the time, they will kind of run roughshod with that idea. And the Black Codes mirrored the old slave codes of the former Confederacy and were already in use in much of Virginia, but they will become part of Southern legislative matters fairly quickly. Black Codes. What are the Black Codes? Well, the Black Codes are something that explicitly deny the right to vote to blacks and the right to serve on juries, the right to hold office, the right to own property. There were all manner of restrictive vagrancy laws passed in addition that were added to the Black Codes. There was a great deal of legislation began flowing out of these states, newly minted as they were, that was meant to directly obstruct the work of the Freedmen's Bureau. To combat these codes, the radical Republicans in Congress will pass 2 measures designed to fight them. One is the Civil Rights Act of 1866, and the other is the 14th Amendment. And next time, if you want to learn about Congressional Reconstruction and what happens to Andrew Jackson, come back and watch that video. Until then, thanks for watching. If you like it, give me a like. And if you want to subscribe, by all means, feel free to do so. Thanks for stopping by.